Hey to all you cave guys and cave gals, Caveman Mining here. Hope everyone is well and having a good day. On today's video, we are going to be rebuilding our hanging rig here. Going to be taking everything down off the workbench, grabbing the whole rack, putting it here down on our table. We've got the 4 AMD Radeon RX 6600s that we're going to place on there. We've got a couple of cables here. And in that box there is a new 1400 watt Delta power supply with an X16 ZSX PSU and breakout board. So we're going to get that all set up for you guys in just a moment. First order of business is we're going to power this machine down in Hiveos, and then we are going to just one by one unplug each of the cards, get the power supplies unplugged, and take down some of these cards from the hanging rig. Alright, we've got to shut these power supplies down. Let's go ahead in the back, snip that one off, snip that one off. Killed the power to the motherboard. Now we're going to start unplugging cables. Alright guys, so we've got the hanging rig down off the workbench here on our little table. It's going to be a little bit easier for me to get in there, start pulling cables, pulling up those power supplies, getting our new PSU in there, and start to organize everything nice and clean. Alright, one thing to mention here is we have the 4-in-1 PCIe USB adapter for the risers to connect into. So this motherboard is limited in terms of space for the PCIe cables. So we're going to use this guy here and get a few more spots. So the goal is going to be 9 total cards on this rig here, and it being in Hiveos, we should be okay. Obviously we'll test everything out to make sure it actually does work. Alright, so slight problem here is the 24-pin connector is super lodged into the motherboard, so I'm going to try my best to gingerly get it out without snapping the housing on the 24-pin connector or just snapping the motherboard in half, so we'll see how that goes. Alright, so we got that 24-pin connector out, and we're going to put this one right back in because we are going to be leveraging this BFG 1200 watt power supply just to simply power the motherboard, and then our Delta power supply will be used to power all of the GPUs. We'll get those running strictly off of that power supply. So let's get this guy in there and then we'll move on to the next step. Just making a game time decision here. Some of the risers that are on this are really old. They're from Amazon.com, kind of the first generation, and these are the 3 or 4 capacitor risers. So I have some new 6 capacitor risers with the cool little LED indicators on there. So I'm probably going to swap these out and put a couple on this rig just to kind of have a new feel to it. Alright, take a look at the difference there. We have now taken out the single 850 Corsair PSU, wiped out some of the cables, the PCIe cables, and taken some of the cards off because I would like to order these nicely, to arrange them nicely as we stack them up. So we got the 4 6600s there. We've got the RX 4000, RTX 4000 rather, cards in the back there. I'm going to leave this guy here because it's just not enough clearance on the top shelf for this long 3-card 6600 XT. And yeah, we'll get the new power supply up, mounted up here, connected into that power supply into the motherboard, and we'll start to piece this thing together. Alright, cool. So we have our amp version of the X16 breakout board. Awesome, love the quality from Parallel Miners. Got our bundle of PCIe cables that are going to run from the breakout board into the cards and the risers. Alright, take a look at that. We got the 1400 watt platinum Delta power supply and the breakout board here staged up. We are conjoining this 1200 watt BFG ATX PSU in with the Molex connector into the 4-pin connector. That'll allow us to control the power from one source, which will be nice if we just shut the rig off and turn it back on. They'll both come up together. Next order of business is unboxing and taking out each one of these RX 6600s. And what we will do is a quick magic trick. At the snap of a finger, I'm going to make these boxes disappear, and you will see the RX 6600 stacked up right here in 3, 2, 1. Look at that, guys. We've got the 4 RX 6600s here stacked up nicely. These are the Armor Edition cards, a very minimalist look. Lightweight, small, compact. Love it. So the plan will be to get these guys on the risers, on the hanging clips. All right, we've reached another milestone here on the rebuild, and all of the cards are up in their respective spots. Nice uniformity. We'll do a 360 walk around the rig here. All that we need to do is get the risers connected up. And I'm just thinking if I should have probably plugged those in before I snap them up on here, but we'll figure it out. I'm not going to stress about that. And then we are going to do some cable management, get all the cables and the splitters up to the risers and the cards. All right, guys, so like magic, we have everything plugged up here. All 9 cards, 9 GPUs, 2 RTX 4000 cards. We've got 4 RX 6600 MSI Armor Edition. We've got 2 MSI Mech Edition RX 6600 and a RX 6600 XT Eagle Edition. We've got our PSU server power supply here conjoined into our ATX power supply. So we're going to go ahead and kick on the power here for the first time, and let's see what we get. Got all blue lights here, no sparks, no noise. I hear some fan doing something somewhere, and I'm not sure where that sound is coming from, but we will find out in a moment. We've got the network and power plugged up here, so let's see if we can get this thing to boot up in Hiveos and see what we got going on. All right, it's getting pretty late here, guys. We have an issue where we're not getting any video posting up. It did flash for a moment in Hiveos, but it didn't show all the cards, so clearly something is going on somewhere. My suspicion is something power related or with a riser not connecting in, so we're gonna try a few things. Well, today is in fact our part 2 of our hanging rig video here. As you guys know, in the last video we were reconstructing and adding 4 cards on here and starting to neaten things up. Unfortunately, here's the bad news. We actually ended up frying somehow. Not sure how we did it, if it touched some metal or something got bopped or scraped, but this Asus Z97 motherboard no longer posts. We don't get any video output. There is power that goes through it. There is indicator lights to show that the power works, the fan spins, GPU spins, but no video output. A little disappointed. Unfortunately, we had to go and purchase a new motherboard, so we got the Asus Prime Z590V. And the cool thing about this motherboard is it has 8 slots for PCIe directly on the motherboard, so we should be good to go with our hanging GPUs theoretically. Did a quick test. We get power, we get a post, we get video output on the video on the motherboard. Next step is now to start plugging in the PCIe riser connections into the motherboard, and then seeing if we can get Hiveos to boot and cards to start showing up. So let's see what we get. All right, boys and girls, so after many hours of troubleshooting, we ran into some issues, and this is just I guess a noob move on my part. Is we had these M.2 PCIe risers plugged into the motherboard, adapters rather, and apparently there was an issue with us plugging in to the first lane or first slot closest to the CPU. One guy, Yellow Jacket on my Twitter, saw the picture and he said try not to plug that in. We couldn't get the 8 cards to boot, so we ended up using the 4x1 splitters into the X16 lanes, and we got all 8 cards to boot. We also even plugged in one in the regular X8 lane there, our 9th card here. So we actually have instead of 8 cards, we've got 9 cards here on this hanging rig. Everything is functional. Everything is mining now in Hiveos beautifully, hashing away. So what we're gonna do next is my wife is gonna kill me, but this garage here is an absolute mess. I've been at this for a couple days, just you know, since I basically bought those 4 RX 6600s. Let's button everything up. I'm gonna get this hanging rig back up on the bench, clean up some of the mess here on the floor, take the busted motherboard out. We're gonna use the Dell motherboard that we have on the ground here and put back our test bench. So that is the order of business. Get all the cables, all the boxes, everything nice and neat. And we'll do that in a flash in 3, 2, 1. All right, take a look at that. Everything is nice and clean, just like magic. No more mess, no more table, no more wires. We have our rigs nice and clean up here, nice and neat, all organized. Look at this beautiful hanging rig now. Not the best cable management, but I didn't have that much time, but I am pleased with it. Everything is functional, organized. Have my test bench back up and running, so now we can test some LHR stuff and some other stuff coming up on that to allow us to expand on the cards. I believe we can squeeze out 1 or 2 more cards on this motherboard from what I was reading. So that's a potential. The only caveat or potential issue, I mentioned this in the past, is we are just about at the capacity or 80% capacity of our PDU here. So this is a 20 amp maximum capacity, which 20 amps, when you convert that to watts, is about 2,400 watts. Let's go ahead behind the tractor here and take a look at our trusty Space Goats power meter. And I'm gonna show you guys here. Sorry for whacking myself here on the wall, but we're at 2173 up to 77. So just slightly over the 80% rule mark there. So theoretically that is a 30 amp circuit, but the bottleneck is not the circuit or not the cable running through, it's the PDU at 20 amps. So I don't think we can add any more cards to that particular PDU. Obviously we could get another PDU there, we would be fine. But I do like that PDU. I have another one there, 30 amp PDU. So if we're gonna do any more expansion or buy any more cards, we're gonna run a separate PDU, gonna have another cable running through, and we're gonna have another meter there with its own dedicated 30 amp circuit. So that'll allow us to expand out a little bit more. So that is pretty much the plan as of now, but I'm pretty content with the setup. We added Hashrate on. We'll get a little bit more in depth. We'll dive into Hiveos, I'm sure, later this week and show you guys some specs and specifics about now how much hash rate we are pulling for Ethereum. This video is just to show you the logistics of actually expanding and adding the 4 cards and now essentially rebuilding that hanging rig. So everything happened pretty much according to plan, other than us frying the Asus motherboard, which is on the shelf here. I think we can salvage that processor that's in there and the memory chip, but yeah, this thing is toast. It's gonna go to the motherboard graveyard. I do have another motherboard here with, I think, a Core Duo processor with 1 or 2 PCIe slots, so that's also a potential of some type of expansion. But we'll play it by ear. I'm not gonna rush into anything. I'm just gonna kind of enjoy the setup and ride the wave at this point. So I just want to again thank you guys for joining me on this journey, and if you have any suggestions, comments, critiques, or something you like, let me know. And as always, thanks for joining me. We'll see you guys on the next video. Caveman Mining, take care.